Sometimes the grass looks greener until you realize it's been spray painted. Hey folks, imagine this. You're sitting in your own garden. It's not perfect, sure. Maybe there's a weed or two. But the soil is rich, the roots are deep, and the plants are growing strong. Then one day, someone you cared for looks over the fence, sees a patch of fake green turf, and thinks they've found paradise. So they jump over, chasing that bright, shiny illusion. But here's the thing, fake grass doesn't grow. It doesn't last. And sooner or later, they're going to realize they traded a living garden for plastic. My friends, this is what happens when someone leaves you for someone else. They don't always go because they've found something better. Often, they go because they've mistaken different for better. And when they do, they convince themselves they've upgraded. They post the photos, they show the smiles, they try to paint the story of how happy they are now. But you and I know, sometimes the loudest "I'm happy" is just a whisper for "I'm trying to convince myself." Let's break the lie right now. Their new relationship is not a sign you weren't enough. It's not proof that they've moved on forever. In fact, many times it's just the opposite. It's proof they couldn't face the depth you brought into their life. Depth is heavy. It demands honesty. And not everyone has the strength to stand in front of a mirror that shows them all their flaws. So they choose someone new, someone who won't challenge them as much, someone who will let them hide. Here's the part that stings for them. You didn't chase. You didn't knock on their door with flowers, begging for a second chance. You didn't watch their life like a hawk, trying to decode their every move. Instead, you went quiet. And let me tell you, nothing shakes a person more than realizing the one they thought would fight for them is instead building a life without them. It's like a stage play, my friends. They expected you to be the supporting character, hanging around in the wings, ready to run on stage if the spotlight got too hot. But you left the theater entirely. You went out into the real world, where the air is fresh, the sun is real, and the applause doesn't matter. And they're still on that stage, smiling under the lights, pretending the script is going perfectly, all while the cracks in the set start to show. Don't misunderstand me. At first they will look happy, and maybe they'll even feel it for a while, but that's the sugar rush of novelty. As Seneca said, most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. When the sugar wears off, they will be left with themselves, and the self they were running from, still there. Same fears, same habits, same unhealed wounds. The beauty is, this isn't about revenge. This isn't about waiting for them to fall. This is about you realizing that the best thing you can do is keep growing so much that even if they tried to come back, they'd be meeting a version of you who no longer fits in the story they left behind. You're not sitting in the shadows. You're out planting an even bigger garden. You're learning, you're training, you're building. So folks, the next time you see them smiling in that photo with someone new, don't think of it as proof they've found the one. Think of it as a movie trailer for a film you've already walked out of. It might look exciting, but you know how it ends. And while they're still stuck in the reruns, you're living the sequel that's 10 times better. Write this in the comments to lock it in your mind. I choose myself first, and mean it. That's your affirmation for today. Because the truth is, when you choose yourself, you don't just move on, you move up. And when you move up, the past can't reach you anymore. So hit that like button, subscribe to Stoic Station, and stay with me, because we're about to dive deep into exactly why their new relationship won't last, and why, when it falls apart, you'll be the one they remember, but can no longer have. Number 1, they chose excitement over substance. Not everything that shines is made of gold. Sometimes it's just polished to fool you. My friends, think about this. Imagine a traveler standing in a marketplace. On one side, there's a craftsman selling a cup carved from solid stone, heavy, durable, made to last a lifetime. On the other side, there's a stand selling sparkling glass goblets that catch the light in every color. The traveler picks the glass, dazzled by how it gleams in the sun. But after a few uses, the shine fades, scratches appear, and one careless drop shatters it completely. That's what they did. They traded the stone for the glass. They traded substance for excitement. In the beginning, their choice feels electric. Everything in this new relationship is loud and colorful. The texts fly back and forth like fireworks in a summer sky. Every conversation feels like a new song, every touch like a spark. And in their mind, this must be what love is supposed to feel like. Endless highs, constant thrill, no heaviness, no demands. But folks, here's the lie they're swallowing whole. Excitement is not the same as connection. Thrill is not the same as peace. Maybe they thought with you, life had gotten too quiet, too predictable. They started to believe that predictable meant boring, not realizing that predictable is often another word for stable. They looked at your steadiness, the fact that you didn't always need to fill the silence, and mistook it for a lack of passion. But here's the truth. Passion that's only loud burns out fast. The fire you built together was made to keep you warm for years. What they've run to now, that's a campfire built on paper. It flares big and bright, and then it's gone. I want you to imagine them months from now. The constant texting has slowed. The laughs aren't as easy. That new person they're with? They've stopped trying as hard. Now there's space, and in that space, there's room for the doubts to creep in. They'll start asking themselves questions they can't shake. Why do I feel less safe here? Why does this person get defensive when I'm vulnerable? Why do I keep thinking about the way things used to be? And those thoughts will scare them, because they weren't expecting them. They thought walking away from you would erase the comparisons. They thought excitement would replace substance. But as time passes, the shine fades, and they can't help but notice the difference. The way you listened without needing to fix every problem. The way you could sit together in complete silence without it feeling empty. The way you didn't need to put on a show for love to be felt. That's when the fear begins. Not fear of losing the new relationship, fear of realizing they gave up something rare for something replaceable. As Marcus Aurelius said, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. And living, my friends, isn't about chasing highs. It's about building something you can return to every day without wondering if it will still be there. Now, they won't admit this to you. At least, not right away. They'll double down for a while, post more photos, tell their friends how happy they are. But behind closed doors, they'll feel the cracks. They'll feel the weight of what they lost. Because the truth about excitement is that it's unsustainable unless it's built on something deeper. Trust, respect, shared values, emotional safety. Without those things, the high always crashes. And when it does, they'll remember the stone cup they once held, the one that didn't break in their hands. Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about hoping they fail. This isn't about sitting there waiting for the day they realize their mistake. This is about you refusing to measure your worth against the shine of glass. Just because they picked something that looks brighter right now doesn't mean it's better. Some people have to learn the hard way that the flashiest choice is rarely the strongest one. I know it's difficult. I know there's a part of you that wonders if maybe they really did find something better. That thought can gnaw at you, keep you awake at night, make you doubt yourself. But my friends, you can't let someone else's chapter make you question your entire story. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. They reacted to their own restlessness by running. You will react by standing still, not stuck, but rooted. Yes, it's hard to watch them parade around in this new glow, but here's what they don't realize. You're not watching to compare anymore. You're watching to learn. You're seeing, with clear eyes, the difference between temporary noise and lasting connection. And with every day you focus on your own growth, you're proving something to yourself. You were never in competition with anyone else. This is where you rise. This is where you take the energy you could spend wondering about them and pour it into yourself. Build something that no one can walk away from, because it's not built for them, it's built for you. Your peace, your health, your discipline, your purpose. That's the kind of fire that never burns out. So write this in the comments right now and let the world see it. I am solid stone. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you. That's not arrogance, that's truth. Because stone doesn't fear the shine of glass. It doesn't rush to compete. It knows that no matter how bright the glass looks today, only one will still be standing years from now. And here's the best part. When the day comes that their excitement fades, when they realize they traded stability for spectacle, you won't be sitting there hoping they come back. You'll be standing so far ahead on your path, so deeply rooted in your own life, that their journey and yours no longer even intersect. That's real power. That's real peace. Stay with me, because next we're going to uncover exactly why, no matter how much they try to bury the memory, your absence will become the one thing they can't outrun. And that's when the story really begins. Number 2, they can't escape themselves. Wherever you go, there you are, because the person you run from is always packed in your own suitcase. My friends, picture this. Someone decides they've had enough of their current surroundings. They think, if I just move somewhere new, all my problems will stay behind. So they book a one-way ticket, leave the city, buy new clothes, and start fresh in a brand new place. But here's the problem. They unpack the same suitcase they had before, and inside it, all the same fears, insecurities, and patterns they swore they were leaving behind. Different walls, same baggage. That's exactly what happens when they leave you for someone else, thinking it will magically make them a different person. They convince themselves that the problem was the relationship, that with someone new, the arguments would stop, the misunderstandings would vanish, the restlessness would disappear. But the truth? People don't suddenly become better partners just because they're with someone else. They carry themselves into every relationship they touch. And if they haven't done the work to change, they're just building the same house with a new coat of paint. It's easy in the beginning. In the glow of a new relationship, flaws are easier to hide. You put your best foot forward. You filter your words. You avoid the topics that reveal too much. They're in that stage now, where every disagreement can be smoothed over with charm, where every insecurity can be silenced by distraction. But sooner or later, the mask slips. The same triggers that caused problems before, they will show up again. The same habits that chipped away at what you had, still there. And that's the lie they don't want to face. They weren't running from you. They were running from themselves. Because being with you meant being seen. It meant their flaws were in plain sight. It meant you knew when they were shutting down. You knew when their words didn't match their feelings. You knew when they were avoiding the deeper conversation. And not everyone wants that level of exposure. It's easier to be with someone who doesn't see as clearly, at least for a while. But here's where it gets interesting. In that new relationship, once the shine fades and the real daily life sets in, they'll be faced with the same version of themselves they thought they escaped. Only this time, they won't have the comfort of your understanding. They won't have your patience. They won't have the history that made you want to stay and work through it. And that's when it will hit them. Changing the setting didn't change the story. Imagine them waking up one day with that creeping feeling in their chest. The conversations feel a little shallow. The silences are no longer comfortable but awkward. The old doubts start to whisper again. Am I enough? Why do I feel unseen? Why does this feel familiar in all the wrong ways? And the worst part for them is realizing it's not the other person creating these feelings. It's them. It's like putting on a brand new pair of shoes that look incredible in the store. You walk out feeling like $1,000,000, but after a few weeks, the same blister on the same part of your foot starts forming. Why? Because the problem wasn't the old shoes, it was the way you walk. And until you change that, every pair will rub you the wrong way. This is why, my friends, you never measure your value based on where they've gone or who they've chosen. Their choice says far more about their relationship with themselves than it does about their relationship with you. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." They can run to another person, another city, another life. But if they haven't mastered themselves, they are not free. They are just hiding in a different room. And here's the beauty for you. You don't need to chase them to prove this point. Life will teach it for you. Your silence, your growth, your refusal to circle back will become a mirror they can't avoid forever. They'll remember that with you. Even in the hard times, there was space to be real, that you didn't need a performance, that you could see through the act, and that you still stayed until they pushed you away. Yes, it will be difficult for them when this realization sets in, because by then, you won't be waiting. You won't be sitting there ready to take them back the moment they figure it out. You'll be somewhere they can't follow, not physically, but mentally, emotionally. You'll have grown into someone whose worth isn't tied to whether they see it, and when they look at you from a distance, they'll see a calm they don't have and can't fake. You have to understand, folks, that people who run from themselves will keep running until they have no choice but to stop. And when they stop, they'll have to face everything they've been avoiding. It's not your job to wait for that moment. It's your job to make sure that when it comes, you're so far ahead in your own growth that you wouldn't trade places with them for anything. Think of it like a race where they took a shortcut to get ahead. At first it seems like they're winning, but that shortcut, it leads them back to the same starting line. Meanwhile, you've been running the real track, building endurance, getting stronger. By the time they come back around, you're miles ahead and they're out of breath. So don't watch them to see if they're happy now. Don't scroll through their life to check for cracks. Focus on yours. Build a life so steady and fulfilling that whether they stay gone or come back, your answer remains the same. I'm not who I was when you left. That's not bitterness, that's progress. Write this in the comments and let it be your anchor. I am my own home. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that no matter where they run, you don't need to follow, because you're already where you belong. That's the power they can't take from you. That's the lesson they'll have to learn without you. And stay with me. Because next, we're going to talk about the moment when the glitter of their new relationship starts to dull. When the fantasy they've been selling themselves meets the reality they can't escape. And my friends, that's when things get very interesting. Number 3, fantasy fades, reality stays. Illusions are like soap bubbles. They shimmer beautifully until life's first gust of wind pops them. My friends, I want you to picture this. Imagine a house built entirely for show. The outside is painted in the perfect shade of white. The lawn is perfectly trimmed. Flowers line the walkway. People drive by and say, "Wow, that's a dream home." But step inside, and you find the walls are paper thin, the foundation is cracked, and the wiring is faulty. It looks flawless from the curb, but you wouldn't want to live in it through a storm. That's what their new relationship really is, a display home built to impress from a distance, not to endure in real life. Right now, they're in the curb appeal stage. To the outside world, and maybe even to themselves, it all looks perfect. The pictures are filtered just right. The captions sound like pure joy. Every outing is a chance to post proof of their happiness. But folks, Here's what most people won't tell you. Public display is often private overcompensation. The louder someone needs the world to believe they're happy, the more they're trying to convince themselves. They're in the honeymoon phase, that early stage where everything feels light, easy, and intoxicating. Every flaw in the other person is ignored. Every disagreement is glossed over. Every red flag is rebranded as just part of the excitement. They've swapped depth for decoration, thinking the shine can hold the same weight as substance. But here's the hard truth. It can't. Because sooner or later, the novelty wears off, and reality starts asking the questions they've been avoiding. Reality is patient. It doesn't rush. It waits quietly until the late-night moments when the excitement has died down, when the phone isn't buzzing, when the laughter has faded into silence. That's when it starts whispering, "Do they really see me? Do I really feel safe here? Is this as solid as I've been telling myself?" And those whispers, they're dangerous to someone living in a fantasy because they're the first cracks in the glass. Think about this. They thought leaving you meant they were leaving behind all the little annoyances, the moments of tension, the tough conversations. They thought a new person would be all light and no shadow. But they forgot the truth every adult learns eventually. No relationship is without its shadows. And when those shadows show up in this new, perfect world, they'll feel even heavier because there's no deep foundation to hold them. And here's the irony. The things they once took for granted with you are the very things they'll start missing. The way you didn't need to fill every silence with noise. The way you knew what they meant, even when they didn't say it perfectly. The way you could weather disagreements without it turning into a war. They'll look at their new situation and see all the sparkle, but deep down, they'll feel the lack of roots. It's like buying a car purely for how it looks. Shiny paint, sleek design, the envy of the parking lot. But after a few months, the reality sets in. The engine's unreliable. The seats aren't comfortable. It costs too much to keep running. Suddenly, the excitement of being seen in it isn't worth the headache of owning it. That's when they remember the old car. Not flashy, but dependable, familiar, trustworthy. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." My friends, chasing endless newness, mistaking glitter for gold, is the insanity most people never escape. And they've walked right into it, thinking they're escaping something else. Now, will they admit this out loud? Not at first. Pride is a stubborn guard. They'll keep posting, keep smiling, keep playing the role they've chosen, but their eyes will start searching the room in quiet moments. Their laughter will get a little forced, and in the stillness, they'll remember the way you made them feel without ever having to prove it. You see, fantasy feeds on performance. It needs constant fuel to keep going. Reality, it runs on truth, and truth doesn't need an audience. That's why your silence unsettles them so much. You're not posting competing photos. You're not showing off how happy you are. You're just living. You're in reality. And reality always wins in the end. This is why you don't have to hope for their downfall. You don't have to check in to see if it's falling apart. Time is already doing the work for you. The fantasy they're in is built on a timeline, a countdown they can't see yet. Every day, the excitement shrinks a little. Every day, the real version of their new partner and themselves steps more into the light. And when that happens, the comparisons will come. They won't be able to stop them. Not because you're still in their life, but because you're still in their memory. They'll think about the steadiness you carried, the trust you gave, the depth you offered. And whether they want to or not, they'll measure their reality against that memory. And here's the thing about memory. It has a way of making what's real now feel paper thin. But here's where your focus needs to stay, my friends. This is not about sitting around waiting for the day they realize the truth. This is about building a reality so rich, so grounded, so fulfilling for yourself that when that day comes, you won't even care. You won't be sitting there thinking, finally, they see it. You'll be thinking, I've moved so far beyond that world, I can't imagine going back. Because that's the ultimate reversal. Not them realizing they made a mistake, but you realizing you no longer need them to. That's when you've won. That's when your reality is so strong, their fantasy becomes irrelevant to your peace. So write this in the comments and make it your anchor today. My reality is stronger than their fantasy. Show them, show yourself, show the world that while they're chasing illusions, you're building something unshakable. Because, my friends, when the glitter fades, and it will, only truth will remain. And you'll be standing in yours without a single crack to hide. Stay with me, because next we're going to get into the part they never saw coming. The way your discipline, your stillness, and your refusal to play their game will throw their entire story off balance. That's when the silence stops being just quiet and starts becoming power. Number 4, they expected you to wait in the wings. Some people don't just walk away, they leave expecting the door to stay unlocked forever. My friends, picture this. Imagine an actor walking off the stage during the middle of a play. They wave at the audience, give a dramatic exit, and disappear into the dressing room. But here's the twist. They fully expect that the show will pause for them. They expect the lights to stay dimmed, the other actors to keep their spots, and the audience to hold their breath until they decide to come back. That's exactly how they saw you. They thought you'd stay frozen in place, waiting for your cue to step forward again the moment they felt like returning. They assumed you'd still be watching their story from the sidelines. They imagined you keeping tabs, checking their social media, catching glimpses of their new life, wondering how they're doing. They counted on the idea that even if they'd left for someone else, a piece of your attention would still orbit them like a moon around a planet. And here's where they made their biggest mistake. They underestimated the quiet power of a person who chooses to disappear completely. Because you didn't linger, you didn't hover around in the background hoping for another chance. You didn't send little breadcrumbs, a like here, a comment there, to let them know you were still thinking of them. You didn't peek through the curtains to see how their new show was going. You took yourself out of the theater entirely. And my friends, when someone expects you to stay in the wings and instead you vanish from the building, it rattles them in ways they can't admit. In their mind, they pictured you staying within reach, not close enough to interfere, but close enough to be reminded of their importance whenever they wanted. They thought your identity would still be tethered to them. That part of you would remain on standby. They saw you as a safety net, not a person, not an equal, but a fallback option. And safety nets don't usually climb out of the circus and build an entirely new life. At first, they'll shrug it off. They'll tell themselves you're just giving it time. They'll convince themselves that you're pretending to be strong, that sooner or later you'll crack and reach out. But the longer the silence holds, the harder that story is to believe. Weeks turn into months, and still nothing. No signals, no traces, no proof that you're even looking in their direction. That's when it starts to feel strange for them. Because here's the truth. People who think you'll wait are used to being the center of someone's emotional gravity. They're used to being able to pull you back with a look, a message, a memory. When they realize you're not in orbit anymore, that your energy has shifted entirely out of their world, it forces them to confront something terrifying. They don't have the control they thought they did. It's like a performer walking back onto the stage expecting applause, only to find the theater empty. The lights are off, the seats are bare. The audience they thought would wait forever has gone home, moved on, and found something better to watch. That silence is deafening. And here's the thing, my friends. Your absence doesn't just remove you from their life. It removes the illusion of security they had. Without you lingering nearby, they don't get to feel chosen just by imagining they could come back to you anytime. They have to face the truth. The moment they walked away, you started walking forward, and forward doesn't loop back. Now, don't think for a second this realization will come to them in one big dramatic moment. It's slower than that, more subtle, and far more unsettling. It might start with them checking your profile out of curiosity, only to see nothing about them. It might be hearing your name from someone else and realizing they don't know a single detail about what's going on in your life now. It might be scrolling through old messages and noticing how final the last ones felt. And with every reminder that you're not standing in the wings, the story they told themselves, that they had you if they wanted you, begins to crumble. This is why discipline matters more than drama. If you had reacted with anger, sent emotional messages, or tried to compete with their new relationship, you would have confirmed their belief that you were still in the background. But by stepping away entirely, by living without leaving a trail for them to follow, you send a message louder than any words. I'm not here to be kept on hold. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." And my friends, bravery isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes it's about refusing to stay in a place where you're only valued for your availability. You set yourself free the moment you decided you wouldn't be their insurance policy. I know this is hard to hear if part of you still hopes they'll come back. But let me be clear. This isn't about whether they return. It's about whether you're still standing in the same emotional spot they left you in. Because here's the secret they don't want to admit. They don't just expect you to wait, they expect you to stay the same. If they do come back, they're imagining the old version of you, the one who cared too much about their approval, who would have dropped everything for a chance to rebuild. But that's not who you are anymore. Every day you move forward, you become someone they no longer recognize, someone they can't just pick up where they left off with. And that's the real shock. Not just that you didn't wait, but that you evolved into someone they can't reach without doing the very work they were running from. Picture it. One day, maybe months or years from now, they try to reconnect. But instead of finding you standing there with open arms, they find you living a life that doesn't have a space for them anymore. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're just unavailable in every way that matters. That's when they realize they weren't just wrong about you waiting, they were wrong about who you were entirely. So write this in the comments right now and make it your flag in the ground. I will not wait in the wings. Show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that your life doesn't go on pause for anyone who chooses to walk out. Because when you stop being the safety net, you stop being taken for granted. And when you stop being taken for granted, you start becoming unforgettable. Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about something even more powerful. Why trying to replace you won't heal them, and how their avoidance today will become the wound they can't hide from tomorrow. And my friends, that's where the real turning point begins. Number 5. New love doesn't heal old wounds. You can paint over cracks in the wall, but the storm will always reveal where the foundation is weak. My friends, imagine a man finds a deep crack running through the wall of his home. Instead of fixing it, instead of getting to the root of the problem, he grabs a bucket of paint and rolls a fresh coat over it. From a distance it looks perfect, smooth, unbroken, clean. But here's the truth. Nothing has changed. The crack is still there, hiding underneath, waiting for time and pressure to expose it again. That's exactly what happens when they leave you and throw themselves into a new relationship without facing the damage inside them. They thought swapping partners was a shortcut to healing. They thought if they could just be wanted by someone new, it would erase the sting of what went wrong before. They convinced themselves that moving on meant physically moving into another person's arms. And at first, it works, or at least it feels like it does. The attention, the affection, the constant stream of validation. It's like a shot of adrenaline straight to the heart. But adrenaline doesn't last. And when it fades, they're left with the same unhealed wounds, only now they've been buried under a layer of denial. See, old wounds don't close themselves just because you stop looking at them. You can ignore them for a while, distract yourself, even convince yourself they're not there. But eventually, they start bleeding through the bandage. And in relationships, those old wounds show up as the same arguments, the same fears, the same patterns, no matter who's standing in front of them. That's the part they didn't want to believe. With you, maybe they felt exposed. You could see the parts of them they were trying to hide. You noticed when they shut down instead of talking. You noticed when they avoided taking responsibility. You noticed when they let their fears speak louder than their love. And deep down, that scared them. So they went looking for someone who didn't see as much, someone who would let them stay comfortable in their hiding places. But comfort isn't healing. Comfort is often just avoidance in disguise. And here's the twist. The more they try to cover those wounds with someone new, the more obvious they become over time. Because the new person, no matter how different they seem, will eventually bump into the same insecurities. They'll trigger the same defenses. They'll bring out the same reactions. It's not because the new person is wrong for them. It's because they still haven't faced themselves. It's like running from a shadow. No matter how far you go, no matter how fast you move, it follows you. They can change the scenery, change the company, change the entire surface of their life, but they can't outrun what's inside. The only way to truly heal is to stop running, turn around, and face it. And that's the very thing they weren't ready to do when they left you. Now here's where it gets powerful for you. When they see you moving forward, not by jumping into something new, not by trying to win the breakup, but by actually doing the work, it hits differently. They start to feel the contrast. While they're distracted, you're disciplined. While they're seeking validation, you're building value. While they're layering paint over cracks, you're repairing your foundation so it can stand through anything. And you need to know this: their distraction will run out. The rush of a new relationship always fades because life has a way of stripping away illusions. When that happens, they'll be left with quiet moments that no amount of performance can fill. In those moments, they'll remember the way you made them feel safe without asking them to pretend. They'll remember the depth you carried that couldn't be faked. And they'll realize that what they have now isn't healing them. It's just delaying the day they have to start. This is why your silence is so important. If you try to show them they made a mistake, they'll dig deeper into the distraction to prove you wrong. But when you let go completely, you force them to sit in their own choices. Without your presence to absorb their uncertainty, they're left face to face with themselves. And my friends, for someone running from old wounds, that's the hardest place to be. Seneca once said, "No man can swim for long with a weight tied to his soul." They're trying to swim right now with anchors they refuse to cut loose. And the longer they avoid facing them, the heavier those anchors get. It might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, but eventually they'll realize they're sinking. And the difference between you and them will be clear. You've learned to swim free, while they've been treading water in denial. And here's the thing. This is not about revenge. This is not about waiting for them to fail. This is about making sure that when they finally see the truth, you're too far along in your own journey to be pulled back into theirs. You don't need them to break for you to feel whole. You just need to keep building the life you deserve, one that doesn't require you to shrink yourself to make someone else feel comfortable. So write this in the comments and let it be a reminder every time you feel tempted to compare. I heal by facing myself. Show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that healing isn't about who stands beside you. It's about who you become when you stand alone. Because here's the reality. The moment you choose to face your own wounds instead of running from them, you step into a strength most people never touch. And that's the kind of strength that doesn't just survive breakups, it transforms you. Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about the part that will really start to unnerve them. How the more you detach, the more their certainty starts to crumble, and why your distance will become the question they can't stop asking. And my friends, that's when the silence starts speaking louder than any words ever could. Number 6. The more you detach, the more they doubt. When you stop feeding someone's ego, they start to wonder if they ever truly mattered. And that question is far louder than any words you could say. My friends, imagine this. You're at a crowded party, music loud, people laughing, conversations overlapping. Someone walks into the room who's used to being the center of attention. Normally, heads would turn, conversations would pause, smiles would stretch in their direction. But tonight, nothing. Nobody rushes over. Nobody even notices they've arrived. They stand there, waiting for the usual rush of validation. But it doesn't come. That's the moment when the silence around them becomes deafening. That's exactly what happens when you detach fully from someone who expected you to keep feeding their importance. In their mind, when they walked away, your silence was supposed to be temporary. They thought it was just a phase, a little act to make yourself look strong. They assumed that eventually you'd give in. Maybe you'd watch their stories. Maybe you'd accidentally like a post. Maybe you'd send a subtle message to test the waters. That's the story they told themselves. You're not gone. You're just waiting for the right moment to reappear. But then, days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still nothing. Not a glance, not a reaction, not a single sign you're still circling their world. The storyline they built in their head starts to crack. What if this isn't an act? What if you're really done? What if you've actually let go? Those questions begin as small whispers, but over time they get louder. And here's the truth. People who live for validation don't fear your anger. They fear your indifference, because anger still means you care. Even chasing them to tell them off still puts them at the center of your attention. But when you detach, when you stop reacting completely, that removes them from the center entirely. And for someone who's used to being the main character in your life, that's a crisis they can't easily name. It's like standing in front of a mirror you've always used, only to find the glass has turned black. No reflection, no feedback, nothing to remind them who they are in your eyes. And without that reflection, they start to lose the story they told themselves about you and about themselves. Now here's what's important to understand. Detachment isn't a game. It's not pretending you don't care while secretly watching their every move. True detachment is when you no longer need to check, no longer feel the pull to respond, no longer have the urge to keep the invisible thread between you alive. It's when you've accepted the ending without needing to rewrite it. And when they feel that, when they realize your stillness isn't staged, it shakes them more than any angry outburst ever could. At first, they'll test it. Maybe they'll post something they know would have gotten a reaction from you before. Maybe they'll bring your name up in conversation with mutual friends, just to see if it gets back to you. Maybe they'll even send a harmless little "hey," not because they want to come back, but because they want to confirm you're still out there, orbiting their life. And when they're met with more silence, more distance, more nothing, the doubt grows. That doubt isn't just about whether you've moved on. It's deeper than that. It's the realization that maybe they weren't as irreplaceable as they thought. That maybe the story they believed, the one where you were the one holding on, wasn't true at all. And my friends, human pride has a hard time swallowing that. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Detachment is the embodiment of that truth. You're no longer letting outside events, their choices, their new relationship, their social media performance control your state of mind. You've taken back the power they once had over you simply by refusing to play the role they assigned you. And here's where it gets interesting. The more you detach, the more they start rewriting their own history of what happened. They'll begin to look back on the relationship differently, not because they've suddenly gained clarity, but because they need to explain why they no longer feel your presence. They'll wonder if you were as invested as they thought. They'll question whether you were already pulling away before they left. They'll even consider whether you found someone else, not because you told them, but because your lack of reaction leaves them with nothing but their own imagination to fill in the gaps. And imagination, my friends, can be far more haunting than the truth. This is why detachment is so powerful. It forces them to sit with uncertainty. And most people can't handle uncertainty without trying to resolve it. But here's the key. It's not your job to give them answers. The power isn't in explaining yourself. The power is in letting the silence speak for you. Think of it like a fire. When you keep adding logs, even small ones, it keeps burning. But if you stop feeding it completely, the flames die out on their own. Your attention was the fuel for their sense of importance in your life. The moment you stopped adding to it, the fire started to fade, and they can feel the cold creeping in. But here's what you have to guard against: the temptation to check in just to see if they've noticed. Because the moment you break your detachment for validation, you hand the power back. True detachment isn't about making them feel anything. It's about building a life so full, so self-contained, that whether they think of you every day or not at all, it doesn't change a thing for you. And I'll tell you this, the day they fully believe you're gone is the day their mind will work overtime to pull you back in. Not necessarily because they want to rebuild, but because losing your attention feels like losing a part of themselves. They expected to be able to walk away and still keep the thread between you intact. They never expected you to cut it clean. So write this in the comments and let it be the reminder you return to when you feel tempted to react. My silence is my power. Show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that you don't need to announce your strength. You just need to live it. Because the truth is, the more you detach, the more they doubt everything they thought they knew. And doubt, my friends, is a seed that grows quietly until one day it's all they can think about. Stay with me, because next we're going to talk about the moment they try to come back and why their return is rarely about love and almost always about control. That's when you'll see the final test of everything you've built. Number 7. Their return isn't what you think. Not every knock on your door is meant to let light in. Sometimes it's just someone checking to see if they still have the key. My friends, let's get real. One day, when they least expect it, or maybe exactly when they planned it, they will circle back. It might be subtle, like a casual "hey" dropped into your inbox as if nothing happened. It might be wrapped in nostalgia. Remember when we, or dressed up in regret. I've been thinking about us a lot lately. It might even come in the form of an apology so perfectly timed it feels like fate. But here's what I need you to understand. The return itself is not the prize. The return is the test. They're not coming back because the universe has finally convinced them you're the one. More often than not, they're coming back to answer a question that's been gnawing at them in the quiet. Do I still matter to you? They want to know if the man who walked away without begging, without chasing, without needing to be seen, is still within reach. It's curiosity, it's control, It's the need to re-establish the story where they're still at the center of your attention. See, they thought they knew exactly who you were when they left, the person who would always be there in some form, even from a distance. But your silence, your discipline, your refusal to orbit them has made them doubt that certainty. And doubt is uncomfortable. So they come back not necessarily to stay, but to check the locks, to see if they can still open the door they once slammed behind them. Now, here's where most people trip and fall. They confuse the sound of the knock with the presence of the heart. They mistake a message for meaning. They see the return as some cosmic sign that the breakup was a lesson, and now the love story can continue. But my friends, let me break the lie. Their return is rarely about rebuilding. It's about reassurance. It's about soothing their ego. It's about making sure they can still pull on the thread, even if they don't want to unravel the sweater. And here's the dangerous part. They might not even realize that's what they're doing. In their mind, it might feel genuine. They might believe they're reaching out because they miss you. And maybe, in a surface way, they do. But missing someone doesn't automatically mean you're ready to do the work to keep them. Missing is easy. Commitment is hard. So when they show up again, your job is not to read their words, it's to read their pattern. Look beyond the nostalgia. Listen past the apology. Ask yourself, are they here because they've grown, or are they here because they've noticed my absence? Are they showing up for me, or for the comfort of knowing they still can? Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And in this moment, you have to be the one who applies that filter, not to them, but to yourself. Is it right for you to reopen this door? Is it true that letting them back in would align with the man you've become? If the answer isn't a resounding yes, then it's already a no. Because here's the reality, your growth has not been easy. Every morning you chose discipline over distraction. Every day you chose silence over reaction. Every night you built yourself back brick by brick. That was the work. That was the investment. And letting someone back in without requiring them to meet you at that new standard isn't just risky. It's a betrayal of the man you've worked so hard to become. I want you to picture this. You've been training for months, lifting heavier, running faster, eating clean. Your body feels strong, and then someone offers you a meal, one that used to be your favorite, but it's spoiled now. The smell is off, the taste is wrong, but the nostalgia is strong. Do you eat it because it reminds you of a different time? Of course not. You know it will set you back. That's what taking someone back without discernment is. Consuming something you already know isn't good for you, just because it used to be. When they return, the real question isn't, do they want me? The real question is, do they deserve me now? And sometimes the most powerful answer you can give is not anger, not bitterness, but calm, grounded indifference. You're not punishing them. You're not performing for them. You're simply holding a standard that says, I've outgrown the version of me that needed you to see my value. I see it myself now. And that, my friends, is where the shift happens. Because when they realize they can't step back into the same emotional spot they left you in, when they see that their presence no longer stirs your peace, they will feel something far more cutting than rejection. They will feel irrelevance. They thought their return would reset the story. Instead, it confirms that the story has moved on without them. But here's the beauty. This isn't about making them feel small. It's about making sure you never shrink yourself again. If they've grown, if they've done the work, if they show up with consistency, clarity, and commitment, then maybe there's a conversation. But until then, your life is not an audition stage. You don't hand out callbacks to people who walked off set mid-scene. So when that knock comes, and it will, remember this. It's not always an invitation to open the door. Sometimes it's just the universe giving you a chance to prove you've truly outgrown the need to. Write this in the comments, and let it be the line you draw in stone. I do not go back to what I've outgrown. Let them see it. Let yourself see it. And let the world around you see it. Because the man who can say that with truth in his chest is a man who cannot be controlled by the past. If this message has stirred something inside you, if it's lit up that part of you that knows you're done playing small, then don't let it fade. Hit that like button, subscribe to Stoic Station, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Because the man you're becoming, he's not a dream, he's real, he's here. And every choice you make from here on out decides whether you stay him or slip back into the shadows of who you were. Stay the course, my friends. The story is yours to write now.